What if you went to sleep in the woods and woke up to find your entire reality had been rearranged? This took place during my final year of university, a period that should have been about finishing exams and planning for the future. Instead, it became defined by a single weekend that forever changed how I view the natural world. Me and three buddies, Jake, Chloe, and Mark, planned a weekend of car camping in the remote Colorado backcountry, seeking one last adventure before adulthood truly set in. We'd been doing these trips for years, but money was especially tight that season, so we opted for a free, dispersed site I'd found on an obscure forum after hours of searching. The spot was deep in the San Isabel National Forest, down a winding, potholed service road that seemed to stretch into infinity, the trees closing in behind us like a curtain. We arrived just as the sun was dipping below the tree line, casting long, distorted shadows across a small clearing we discovered beside a long, dry riverbed, its cracked earth a testament to a forgotten water source. The isolation was absolute. No recent tire tracks, no other people, not even the distant hum of a generator. It was exactly the solitude we craved, a true escape from everything. We pitched our tents in a haphazard circle, about 10 feet apart, wherever the ground was the flattest and clearest of pine cones and rocks. The evening was uneventful. Some cheap beer, a deck of cards, conversations about professors and future plans that now feel like they happened to different people in a different lifetime. We were all exhausted from the long, jarring journey and turned in around midnight, retreating to our separate shelters, zipping ourselves into our little nylon worlds. I'm an incredibly light sleeper, the kind who wakes up if a floorboard creaks in another room. At home, the slightest noise will jolt me awake, and camping is usually a nightmare of constant stirring. But that night, I fell into a deep, drugged sleep the moment I zipped up my bag, a complete and utter shutdown of my senses. It was the heaviest, most unnatural sleep of my life, a total void. Waking the next morning, a profound wrongness hung in the air, a thick, metallic taste of dread that I could actually smell. I unzipped my tent flap for some fresh air, and my blood ran cold. Our tents were no longer where we left them. All four had been repositioned into a flawless, precise square formation, encircling a neat pyramidal-like stack of smooth river stones that absolutely and definitively hadn't been there before. It felt like a dream, a glitch in the matrix that I couldn't blink away. Each tent had been shifted dozens of feet, yet the stakes were perfectly set at the same taut angles, and nothing inside was out of place. My sleeping bag was still twisted from my body, my headlamp was on the little pocket where I left it, my phone was still charging on the battery pack. My gear was exactly as I had left it, a bizarre contrast to the utter chaos of our external situation. I felt a surge of primal panic, convinced I was having a psychotic break, that the stress of finals had finally shattered my mind. I shouted for the others, my voice cracking with a fear I didn't even fully understand yet. Jake emerged first, his hair a mess, squinting in the morning light, and the stunned, wide-eyed look on his face confirmed he saw it too, that this wasn't a solo hallucination. Chloe and Mark crawled out moments later, their expressions mirroring our sheer gut-wrenching disbelief. None of us had any memory of the night. No sounds, no disturbances, just that profound, unnatural sleep. Then Chloe, her voice barely a whisper, mentioned a strange, vivid dream about wandering through a vast, empty canyon under a blazing sun while a calm, monotone voice narrated her every movement, counting her steps. Jake, looking pale, said he'd dreamed of being a soldier in some endless, faceless army on a long, forced march through a desert, his feet aching in unison with thousands of others. Mark and I recalled no dreams, just blackness, but the similarity between theirs was chilling. A shared theme of being observed and directed on a journey. The connection between the four of us felt different, too. A silent shared dread that was almost telepathic, a hive mind of anxiety. It was as if a fifth unseen presence was now a part of our group, a silent passenger in all our heads.
We scoured the area for answers, our movements jerky and frantic. Jake's first theory was that we'd all slept-walked, some collective lunacy. But that flimsy idea was instantly destroyed the moment we looked down at the ground. We discovered clear, deep drag marks leading from our original tent sites, gouges in the pine needles and soil. Strangely, the marks stopped several feet short of the new positions, as if the tents had been lifted and carefully, meticulously placed the final distance. The stone pile was even more unsettling. 4 identical flat river stones balanced with impossible gravity-defying precision. As Jake leaned in for a closer look, his foot caught on a root and he stumbled forward, sending the carefully arranged stones clattering to the ground in a heap. For a moment, there was only a deafening silence, the 4 of us staring at the scattered rocks, holding our breath. Then from the dense tree line across the clearing, a low, grinding rumble echoed, a deep vibration we felt in our chests, like ancient granite slabs shifting against each other deep underground. We didn't speak a word. We didn't need to. We just started packing in a synchronized, frantic rush, throwing gear into bags with no care for organization. I could feel their terror as if it were my own, a feedback loop of pure adrenaline. We were out of there in under 5 minutes, a new record for panic packing. We never spoke of that morning again. That was 6 years ago. Life pulled us all in different directions to different cities, different careers. We send the occasional birthday text, but we've never, ever discussed what happened in that clearing. It's a silent shared scar.
My name is Leo. This occurred 2 summers back, during the time when my relationship with my partner Iris was hitting a rough patch. We'd been together for nearly 2 years, and the initial spark had faded into a comfortable but dull routine. We decided a secluded camping trip in Utah's Wasatch Catch National Forest was the perfect reset, a chance to reconnect without the distractions of city life. I booked a remote site at the very end of a rough, washboard gravel road, a place the reviews promised was quiet and spread out. When we pulled in at dusk, the place was nearly empty, just one other vehicle parked far away. We chose a spot where the thick pine tree line provided a natural wall, giving us a sense of privacy. As we finished setting up our new tent, a man emerged from the shadows between the trees without a sound, just a sudden presence where there was none before. He introduced himself as Eli, his voice calm, saying he was camped in a red Jeep Wrangler a few sites over. His gaze was uncomfortably intense, never wavering, and it immediately locked on Iris, barely acknowledging me. He made small talk, his words neutral, but his eyes evaluating, commenting on how private and secluded our spot was, which felt less like an observation, more like a statement of fact. The vibe was immediately, profoundly off. I made a weak excuse about needing to wake up early for a hike, and he finally left, melting back into the deepening darkness without a flashlight, his form disappearing seamlessly into the trees. We tried to shrug it off, blaming our own city-born paranoia, and went to bed a while later after a quiet dinner by the fire. I woke up sometime after 3 a.m., my heart already pounding, to the sound of muffled voices having a conversation right outside our tent wall, so close I could almost feel their breath on the nylon. I lay frozen, then grabbed my phone, shone the light out through the mesh window, and the talking stopped instantly, cut off mid-sentence. I saw no one, no retreating shadows, nothing. I wrote it off as other late-night campers and went back to a fitful, anxious sleep. The next day, after a morning spent hiking and trying to reclaim the trip's purpose, we found it. A note. It was tucked under my wiper blade, a single sentence scrawled in messy, rushed handwriting on a greasy napkin. "You should not have camped here." I showed Iris, and her face drained of color. As we were arguing in hushed, frantic tones about what to do, whether to pack up immediately or report it,
Eli appeared again, seemingly from nowhere, standing at the edge of our sight. I confronted him, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear, demanding to know if this was his idea of a joke. He apologized, not for the note, but for startling us, and then told us something that made my skin crawl. He said he was surprised to see people our age here, that this particular area had a dark reputation among the few locals who knew of it. He claimed to have found multiple abandoned campsites deep in the woods on his hikes, with personal items like coolers and chairs just left behind, as if the occupants vanished. He said he'd heard people whispering around his Jeep last night and had decided to cut his trip short and leave before sunset, strongly advising us to do the same. We didn't need any more convincing. The official story was the note, but the real reason was the look in his eyes. He wasn't trying to scare us, he genuinely seemed spooked himself. We packed in a frenzy as the last of the daylight bled from the sky, throwing everything into the car haphazardly. Driving out, our headlights cutting shaky paths through the dark, I saw Eli by his red Jeep, crouched down by the front passenger side tire. I slowed against my better judgment and saw a massive, deliberate gash in the rubber. It was unmistakably slashed. He asked for a ride, his voice tight, but Iris gripped my arm, her nails digging in, and whispered a firm no. I promised to call for help the second we got service. As we drove down the darkening, narrow road, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, I saw them. 3 figures, standing perfectly still among the trees about 50 feet off the road, their faces pale smudges in the gloom, watching us pass without moving a muscle. Iris saw them too and let out a short, sharp scream, and I stomped on the gas, the car lurching forward. I called 911 from the highway the moment a bar of service appeared. They sent a car, but we never learned what, if anything, they found. We never followed up. We just drove home in silence. Some warnings are written in silence, and some are carved into the side of your memory.
This happened just last month. I was 29, recently separated, and stuck in a very dark, deep hole of self-pity and anger. I thought the only way out was to completely disconnect, to strip away all modern comforts and spend a full week alone in the absolute unforgiving wilderness of central Idaho. I told my sister a general area, 100 square mile patch of forest, loaded my truck with a week's worth of supplies, and drove for hours until the pavement ended and civilization felt like a distant rumor. My GPS failed me completely on the final, overgrown 2-track path, a trail that was more of a suggestion than an actual road. I finally stopped when the path became impassable, blocked by a recent fall of dead branches. The moment I stepped out into the crisp, thin air, the silence felt heavy, and I saw it. An old military surplus-style tent. Its olive green fabric faded to a sickly brown, its surface speckled with black and white mold. I held my breath, my shirt pulled over my nose, and peered inside. An empty sleeping bag lay crumpled. A few rusted cans were scattered about, and a small, leather-bound journal rested neatly in the center. I snatched the journal and retreated, gasping for clean air. Its pages were filled, cover to cover, with nothing but tally marks, meticulously grouped in 7s, line after line after line. The final count was in the hundreds, a record of something I couldn't comprehend. I was more intrigued than scared at that point, a puzzle presenting itself in the middle of nowhere. I decided to set up my own camp on the far side of the clearing, a good 100 yards away, but keeping the strange decaying tent in my line of sight at all times, a strange sentinel. That night, under a breathtaking alien canopy of stars, undimmed by any light pollution, I was jolted awake from a deep sleep by the sound of whispers. Multiple hushed voices having a conversation just outside my tent, too low to make out words, but clear enough to hear the sibilant sounds. I lay frozen in my sleeping bag, my heart hammering against my ribs, my hand instinctively closing around the cold, familiar stock of my hunting rifle. Then I heard footsteps, not just one set, but several, crunching softly on the pine needles, circling my tent in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Then a hand grabbed the zipper pull and started yanking on it hard. When the clips I'd secured it with held firm, they pulled back. I waited, breath held, and then heard it. A faint cracking at the nylon fabric right by my head. Not like an animal, but like someone methodically trying to claw their way in with fingernails. That was the breaking point. I yelled, my voice cracking, that I was armed and would fire. The scratching stopped dead. After a moment of pure, thick silence, I heard several people, at least 3, maybe 4, running off in different directions, their footsteps crashing through the undergrowth away from me. I didn't sleep another wink, sitting upright with my rifle across my lap until the first gray light of dawn filtered through the trees. At first light, I unzipped my tent and stepped outside, rifle held ready, my body buzzing with exhaustion and fear. I immediately looked over to where the old, moldy tent had been. It was gone. Not just taken down, but as if it had never been there at all. No impression in the grass, no stake holes, no flattened area, but all around my site, in a disturbingly perfect circle, about 20 feet out, were barefoot human footprints of various sizes, pressed deep into the soft soil, as if their makers had been standing there for a very, very long time. I followed one set of the clearest footprints, leading away from my tent and towards a large, gnarled pine tree at the edge of the clearing. And there, freshly carved into the bark with a knife, were tally marks. 7 vertical lines, a diagonal slash, repeated 7 times, and then a single fresh mark starting an 8th set. And then, from the corner of my eye, I saw it. A dead rabbit, suspended from a low branch with a thin, almost invisible wire, its belly slit open and its limbs arranged in a grotesque and unnatural display. That was all I needed to see. Any thought of investigation or bravery vanished. I packed my gear with violently trembling hands, my head on a swivel, expecting to see figures in the trees at any moment. The drive out was a nerve-shredding ordeal of inching my truck in reverse down that narrow, winding trail, my mirrors nearly scraping the bark, expecting an ambush or a blockade at every turn. I made it home, my body aching with tension, and I never reported it to any authority. What would I even say? The thing that haunts me, that image burned onto the back of my eyelids, isn't the whispers or the footprints, it's the rabbit. That wasn't hunting. That was a message, left specifically for me. If these stories of the unknown, these encounters that defy all logic sent a chill down your spine, please do like this video and follow Winds of Thought for more journeys into the shadows that lie just beyond the campfire's light.